Welcome to Rossman Radio, the podcast where we dive deep into the journeys of entrepreneurs, founders, and e-commerce brands that are breaking through the noise and scaling like never before. I'm Elise, and Rossman Media is a trend-forward social media agency specializing in going viral and delivering 10x returns for the brands that we work with. Each week, I'll sit down with industry disruptors to talk about the highs, the lows, and the exact strategies that help them grow from their first sale to multi-million-dollar milestones. If you're ready to unlock what it really takes to win on social, build a community, and multiply your revenue, then you're in the right place. Let's get into it. Welcome back to Rossman Radio, the go-to podcast for entrepreneurs that are looking to harness the power of social media to build, scale, and amplify their brands. I'm one of your hosts, Elise Asaro, and today I'm sitting down with entrepreneur and CEO of TerraFlame, Lenny Vainberg. Yes, those are those amazing tabletop fireplaces that we all see online that make you feel like summer year-round, or at least want summer year-round. But there's just so much more to this brand that meets the eye, and we're going to dive into all of it. So first things first, let's get this out of the way. We both graduated from Arizona State, but I'm not the CEO of a multi-seven-figure business. So tell me how you got here and why you got into entrepreneurship.
Oh, that's a great question. I think the straight answer is I don't know that I was good at anything else, and I'm not sure that I was employable by anybody else. But, I came out of school. I spent a little time in corporate finance and, in financial services. Started out at your Morgan Stanley, Dean Witter type of a thing. Okay. Realized pretty quickly on that is not the path that I wanted to take in life. And, back in the 90s, I had this gentleman that became my mentor, a gentleman by the name of Frank Finn. He was an old school entrepreneurial rep. And I mean, old school, like Merchant Marine, NYU, MBA kind of thing that was, one of your, old school briefcase in the hand sales reps. He was a guy that would represent multiple product lines and go help people sell them into retail. This gentleman kind of helped, we formed an early relationship through a business that I was involved in. And when I was in my 20s, he kind of got me on board to help him start a brand called Blades. Blades was like the it toy of the 90s, like the late 90s. We did the Blades motor scooter. So the Razor scooter came along in the early 90s. That became like a phenom of the perfect widget or the perfect product. And he decided he wanted to start a competing company, which basically turned into the Blades motor scooter, which was like the it toy in the late 90s.
It was literally one of the first motor scooters I remember.
It was like the second one. There was the GoPed, which was like, done by this, forgot the gentleman's name, but that was like the cult item that was all over the place.
The GoPed was like banned by every parent.
Everybody, yeah, right. It was the electric bike of the 90s.
Yes. Very cool.
Well, yeah, long story short, Frank had this idea. He had a name or a name called Blades, which had a little push scooter, had a ton of inventory he couldn't sell. So I got involved with him. We kind of started to figure out what the kids are looking for. We rebranded that business, turned it into an actual, brandable company, found a designer that had a design for a really cool motor scooter, figured that the evolution of the push scooter was going to go motorized. We went to a show, that the big international sporting goods show, which at the time was in Taiwan. It was called Taispo. Went there like in 97, had a design for a motor scooter, found a factory that would build them for us. And next thing you know, we launched the Blades Powerboard. That thing grew into a $0 to $30 million business inside of 3 years. And that got my exposure into product design, development, manufacturing, import, and distribution, kind of like all the things you need to go build a brand and to build a consumer product. We just happened to have one that all the kids that wanted, we had a product that all the kids wanted, and that helped us get into all the big retailers, Walmart, Sports Authority at the time. We got a deal at Costco. We sold hundreds of thousands of these motor scooters, built the brand pretty successfully over the course of 5 years, and then, made some bad choices. Some laws that were unfavorable to the operation of motor scooters came around, and that pretty much closed the chapter on that whole Blades thing. Blades ultimately got taken over by the factory. The factory used our office and used it to set up the evolution of where they wanted to go, which was fitness equipment, I believe is what that factory was primarily manufacturing. So learned a lot, picked my chips up, and went out and started a company called, at the beginning it was called Red Star Traders. I hooked up with a couple guys, and we started importing poker chips, jewelry boxes, and humidors, like gift and game room products. And we kind of ran that business for a couple of years as Red Star Traders. It's kind of a trading company that was focused on home and decor, gift and lifestyle. At that time, we used it as an opportunity to build a lot of online distribution. It was really easy to become an online seller in like 2007. Everybody wanted somebody that would drop ship for them. So we were able to go to Target, Walmart, you name it. And we were able to get vendor agreements with all these other people that were just so happy that they had vendors that were willing to hold the inventory and drop ship for them. And I guess from that point, my break, I would say, came in probably 2009. I had a relationship with a buyer at Costco. We were selling poker sets, and he came to me and said, "Hey, I'm looking for this hammock." And he knew what he was looking for and asked if I'd be willing to source it for him and import it and handle the distribution for Costco.com. So we launched the Big Daddy hammock on Costco. And that became our first $1 million online item. We went from selling like $100,000 of a good poker chip set to like $1.5 million of this really cool hammock. And we're like, oh, furniture. This seems like a much bigger thing than poker set. So little by little, we transitioned. We rebranded our company into RSD Brands, and we got into the furniture business. And over the course of the next, I'd say 8-9 years, we built that into an $80 million furniture import and distribution business. We were the largest supplier of patio furniture at Costco for many years. And then, Wayfair, Overstock, Amazon. We weren't so big on Amazon, but definitely all the big high profile furniture resellers. We basically became the go-to for mid-priced, $3,000 to $4,000 patio furniture sets. Built out a whole supply chain in Asia, brought on some great designers, figured out the marketing, the creative, what it would really take to sell a $3,000 product sight unseen online, and built a really nice business across the board. I exited that business in 2019. And then through, I guess, just through luck or, I lost the bet somewhere along the way. I fell into this whole manufacturing down in Mexico thing. And that just one day became the next chapter of what I'm doing. So you want to kind of lead into TerraFlame? You got any questions about that? Yeah.
Yeah. So, wow. First off, that is incredible. So obviously for everyone listening, he's got a lot of credibility in terms of what we're about to talk about. So first, I do want to hear about some of the differences that you're experiencing between, US based and Mexico based. And then also when it comes to marketing the businesses, how that differs in both.
Okay. So, US versus Mexico. So when I took over this business, it just started off with, my stepfather, he was in his late 70s, early 80s. He was bored at home, and he hooked up with a partner, a Mexican guy, that convinced him to going down to Baja, Mexico, to Tecate, which is a little town outside of Tecate called Vilas Palmos, and acquiring some land and manufacturing pottery. And they started this, the little manufacturing plant that did pots, planters, things like that. And his partner had a shop here in Orange County, big, where they sell plants and planters and stuff like that. They were manufacturing product. His partner was selling them. Wasn't a very big business, but they were, they got something figured out. They got a facility, they got some land, they built some facilities down there. They got, they got their legal, they got a business set up in Mexico.
Yeah.
Didn't get very far, but they got it set up. And he started coming to me, as he started, this took him a couple of years, and now he's in his 80s. And he's like, hey, you need to help me out. And he kept asking for some help. And then one day my mom's like, you got to help him out. I mean, he's 84 years old, and he needs something to happen here. So I agreed to start helping him. And I had known the guys from a company called TerraFlame, which was owned by a private equity firm out of Utah. They were this obscure little company that was founded by the guy by the name of Steve Young, who super creative product design and development guy. He basically reformulated a sterno fuel, which is a chafing fuel, into this new formula that provides a bigger, brighter, more brilliant flame that became the TerraFlame can. And then he started coming up with really cool things you can burn the cans in. So you would put a can into a device, and you have a vessel, and you have the fuel, and you can create this instant ambient decorative warming fire feature anywhere.
Yeah.
And so I had approached these guys and said, hey, I got a little factory in Mexico. Let me make something for you. And they're like, that's perfect. We're looking for somebody to make us these fireballs. And we start making this fireball for them. It became our best-selling product, became their best-selling product. And a few months later, the private equity firm that owned the business approached me and my brother and said, hey, you guys have a factory. Lenny understands retail. You guys should buy this business from us. We're a little burnt out on it, and we think it'll be a great platform for you to grow your factory.
Interesting. So after acquiring the TerraFlame from the private equity firm, what were like some of the initial challenges that you faced in revamping the brand, and how did you really go about that? Obviously, it was a different brand at that time.
Yeah, it was a small company. They peaked out at $5 million in sales in one of the years that they had owned them. They had big club orders from Sam's Club and stuff like that. They really didn't have their supply chain or manufacturing set up. They had a great idea for a brand, and people already loved the product. Already great reviews, seemed like a highly impulsive purchase, right? You get $100 product that can go anywhere. So revamping the brand took a couple different things. First of all, that business was like, even though it had hit 5 million, it was when we acquired the business, it was probably doing $2 million in revenue. The first order of business was to just kind of figure out what was going on. And we knew it wasn't profitable at 2 million. And that hadn't even accounted for the manufacturing yet. So what we spent the first 90 days doing was just like analyzing all the customers and all the orders. So we literally looked at every order that went out the door, and we said, look, if it's losing money at the time that we're invoicing it, we're just going to shut it off right now. If it's breaking even or better, we're going to start working on it, work on raising the price, but we're going to work with that. Well, lo and behold, of the $2 million of revenue that I had purchased, I had $600,000 of revenue left that was not losing money. So we started the business with $600,000 of clean revenue, and that was our foundation from which we started to grow. So, the steps that we took, right? The challenges, I would say, that were pretty exciting at the time, but a lot to bite off, were we were building a brand, and we were building a factory, and we were building distribution all at the same time.
Yeah.
So usually you're going to build a brand, you figure out what you want to build, you go to China, you find somebody that's going to source it for you. And you go buy it, and then you got a whole slew of problems. You got to deal with inventory, you got to deal with factories in China, stuff like that. But it's a lot easier to give a PO and then go manage that process until they actually ship the product. You can work with existing things that are available to validate your product, test your product, control your quality, and things like that. That becomes your problem. But manufacturing is not your problem in that sense. Whereas what we did is we acquired the brand to kind of plug it into this factory that was not really producing these things at scale. So Target comes along, gives us an order for 14,000 units, which took us 6 months to produce. But, we did it. We wanted to ship Target because at the time we were doing everything by hand. And, we had to tool up the factory to be able to produce this product category. And, the challenge in that is there's one thing when you're buying a finished product from a factory and then bringing it in, inventorying it, storing it, marking it up, and then selling it, versus when you're converting raw materials into finished goods. Mm-hmm. So I know people do it on a much bigger scale than I've ever done it on, but turning rocks into something that people want to buy and pay $100 for, that became our challenge. So I think that was that was the whole thing, tying up the manufacturing and figuring out how to manufacture this product and get it to a point where people are willing to pay for it and be happy with it. That was probably the first order of business and the biggest challenge to start off with.
Okay, and you talk a lot about the big box stores, and I'm curious, is that the main form of how you've marketed this product?
So this product in particular, so you see it's TerraFlame Motor Concrete, right? So we got a couple things going on here. We have a factory that focuses on the production of cementitious products, right? So pour cast concrete, spray cast concrete, GFRC, and then along the way, we identified and started investing in this technology, which is called high pressure casting of concrete. Without getting into details, it allowed us to basically pressure cast almost like an injection molding process, but for cement, the production of the fireball. So if you look at our Instagram or whatever else, you see the evolution of the ones that look like they
Yeah.
were poured out by hand, and then the ones that look like they were stamped out of a machine. We went over and we started manufacturing with that process, right? So when you ask about like the big box, certain product lines are amazing online items. Certain product lines are probably great online items, but it's very difficult to scale a $99 product that is 20 pounds that costs $20 to ship and really get a lot of velocity selling that product online. So in our strategy, we use internet to build brand, build awareness, build a strong, loyal following of raving fans, if you will. And then we obviously leveraged in leading into retail to scale our business. So Target became our first retailer that, you know, really got behind the product, started with a 700 store test, grew into all 2,000 stores, end caps, you know, things like that. Then we started making a product specifically for Target. They asked us to develop a little s'mores roaster, if you will.
No pun intended.
Yeah, no pun intended. So yeah,
I'm happy you brought up the s'mores.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought those up, this little s'mores, because I see those all over. And how do you deal with these copycats?
I mean, you know, it's just brand. I mean, at the end of the day, all you have is brand, right? So if you have brand following, brand loyalty, innovation, good marketing, I mean, people are going to go want to buy the branded product. You can buy a bunch of cheap knockoff things like, you know, yoga wear, but people want Aloe and Lululemon and whatever else they're buying. You can go on Temu and buy a pair of yoga pants for $3. So, I mean, it comes down to brand. You have to invest in the brand. You have to invest in that assimilation between what your product stands for and kind of the lifestyle that people think that they have when they have that product. On our product, interestingly enough, like because of our location in manufacturing and because of the manufacturing system that we have, you'd be hard pressed to find anybody that can produce as many of these products as we can in Asia. Because like everybody was making them by hand to get a bunch of molds, you pour it in, whereas we've applied some block making technology to this so we can automate the production of those things. And to my knowledge, you know, good, bad, or indifferent, I don't think anybody else on the planet is able to do as many of this product at the scale, velocity, and quality that we are in Asia or otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And you talk a lot about brand, which is a huge reason why we have you on the show today. I want to know from you firsthand, what is the most important part of your marketing or branding that you feel is the most consistent driver of revenue?
I think those are two mutually exclusive questions that you're asking. Like, so the most important part of marketing, I believe today, and there's plenty of, you know, younger generation that are a lot better at it than I am, but it's building authentic content.
Yeah.
Like you have to go out there and build authentic content that relates to whoever the target market or the addressable market is that you're trying to connect to. So obviously, whether you're creating that creative, making that creative, or you're working with a whole network of influencers or end users, ideally, they're creating their user-generated content. Like, I think that's the most important thing, to go out there and to build brand.
Yeah.
How you use that content and creative is, I think, what's going to translate into revenue. So, I mean, you could build a bunch of different content and, you know, I mean, hope that the affiliate and the influential marketing are going to drive traffic. But there's obviously the whole back end is, okay, now I got a lot of great content. How do I use it? Where do I deploy it? How do I manage my ad spend? And, you know, what am I actually going to do to drive traffic?
Yeah. And that is definitely the number one reason that I hear that from almost every business owner that I talk to that walks through our door to our agency saying, hey, I have this great content. You know, our users or our customers are constantly sending us pictures and videos. How do we optimize this? And what you said completely nailed it. I don't think the younger generation would differ from what you're saying, because we work with businesses, tiny and multi-million-dollar organizations. And the number one consistent thing that we are doing is creating content that resonates, that makes people feel something, that is authentic. I mean, we're kind of moving away from people wanting to buy from these big influencers. And we're seeing a huge shift in the market where people just want to buy from people that are authentically selling something to them. And you're exactly right.
Authentic content. I mean, I got a 14-year-old that, you know what I mean? They're like, I understand the way her shopping habits are forming, and like what she wants to buy is consumed or driven by what she sees on social. Like that audience is there. I think my wife in many cases is the same way. I mean, she sees certain things. Now, look, do you see the big influential brands? I mean, are you seeing Chanel and Louboutin and everybody else on social? You probably are. That's not driving, a 40-year-old buying decision, but it's validating where they fit. So I think for newer brands, that's super important to be able to go out there and create that content. In the case of something like a s'mores roaster, it's super easy to get because number one, I can ship out thousands of them. Like anybody that wanted to create content, I'll ship you one for free. And then I'd say probably 10% of those people actually created some bitchin' content. And, we had affiliate programs and things like that. They didn't, at the end of the day, amount to huge sales. Like obviously when Target comes along and gives you a 50,000 unit PO, that's where the business is being done. Right. But the only reason that's even happening is because they're seeing the awareness and the buzz that you're creating around the whole social, network.
They go hand in hand. And I think that these big stores, you'll start to see, and I'm sure you're seeing this, especially having been in this industry and in this business for as long as you have been, multiple businesses, you've seen the difference where big box stores, they are investing in brands that have a social media presence now, because it's if the brand that they're putting on their shelves already has a loyal following or a cult following or a viral product, that's money that they're not spending to advertise on your brand. So it's a win-win situation. And, the problem that you're mentioning that brands have when it comes to content not performing, it's one thing to have a library of robust content. That's fantastic. It's another thing to understand how to properly optimize it. And that's where agencies come into play or marketing teams come into play. And it's really important because we see these brands all the time picking up a ton of content or creating it in-house. But if you're not doing it from a conversion standpoint where you're creating authentic content in a studio or behind your iPhone, even if you're not doing that with a conversion-based strategy, then that content's going to flop. And it's just going to serve for that 24 hours on your page, and then it's never going to be seen again. And then sometimes there's brands that are paying influencers or paying creators or shipping out even more valuable products of higher value, like hundreds of dollars, where they're not getting a return on that product trade. So it's definitely important to understand, or at least have a team that understands, how to really optimize the content that you're getting. And it's definitely a two-pronged approach. And I agree with you that it helps when you go into the store. So what is on the agenda for 2025? I know that you're balancing dual brands right now, managing both Moda Concrete and TerraFlame. Obviously, you've talked about navigating the distinct markets, but what is on the agenda for this year? Are we going to see any new products?
I mean, yeah, you are. Like, it's been interesting since we got acquired by Solo. I mean, the acquisition was very early for us. Like, we weren't expecting it. We weren't looking for it. We were kind of, plugging away, doing our thing. We had a plan to take the whole TerraFlame brand down this path of home decor and lifestyle. And my background is furniture. I had a non-compete that was hanging out there for a couple of years. As that expired, we started focusing on more, seating and more how do you sit around and how do you enjoy around the fire. When we got acquired by Solo, there was, interesting kind of side plot here is that, when you get acquired by company, it seems on paper like, during your dinners and during the courting period, things are going to work a certain way. And then when you get into it, things don't always necessarily work that way. So obviously the bigger fish is going to gobble up the smaller fish. And then little by little, you have to figure out how to all kind of swim in that pond together. So I would say that our product strategy that we had started going down has shifted. And we are now kind of aligning ourselves up underneath, what Solo brands or Solo stoves kind of product development roadmap is. But the couple things that I can share with you that we're working on, it's not, a little bit early stage, or, maybe some things earlier stage than others. But the foundation of our product is the fuel, right? So in TerraFlame, it's always about, we sell the fuel can that's fire in a can, clean burning, non-toxic, odorless, alcohol-based fuel, which provides a really brilliant flame. You can warm with it, you can cook with it, you can, look at it, it's a really cool fire source. And then we make the appliances that burn those fuel cans. But the business model has always been, the more of these appliances you sell, the more fire bowls, the more of the fireplaces that we sell, the more fuel cans people are going to buy. And that's kind of been the business thesis, is that it's the razor blade theory. The more devices that are out there, the more fuel we sell. So we sell quite a bit of fuel, as you can imagine. So one of the things we're working on right now is we have a pure fuel, and we have a citronella fuel, which is just a little bit of citronella oil. We're working on a bug repelling gel fuel. So we'll have a fuel that's out, that's actually designed for outdoor use, that's designed to keep, basically your area comfortable outside. And that falls into what Solo's overall product strategy is, which is, how to be the ultimate outdoor entertainer. So, we're trying to align our product strategy a little bit deeper into, what they're working on. You'll see some fireplaces that kind of come down the pipeline. You'll probably see some chat sets that use some of our, Adirondack chairs and furniture that kind of combine with both our ethanol burning fireplaces as well as Solo stoves. And then on the Moto Concrete side, Moto Concrete, again, being our architectural precast, we do, other things out of concrete. So the TerraFlame side is all this consumer product out of concrete, and then Moto Concrete is all about, decorating your outdoors and now indoors using concrete forms. So started doing planters and water features. Now we do large fire pits, propane fire pits. And then really the biggest shift in direction we've been working on is we now make, with the same technology that makes those fire bowls, we make decorative breeze blocks, pathway blocks, and wall tiles. So if you look at the Moto Concrete website, you'll see a pretty big presence in that block and tile category. And we're going to be leaning in a little bit heavier into those categories.
That's interesting. Well, that's exciting. And there's a lot of product development happening behind the scenes. So that's very exciting. And I know that, you've experienced pretty significant highs and lows from what you've said. And I'm curious, what are like the biggest lessons that you've taken away from it? Maybe just one that comes to mind, because one thing you did say was after the scooter brand was no more, you said you picked up your chips, and then that led into you quite literally working with chips. And that was like your next venture. What was the biggest lesson you learned? Because it sounds like, from you saying that you really did just kind of get right back up and get after it.
I mean, listen, I think there's volumes of books and ideas and theories written on mindset and entrepreneurial spirit and stuff like that. I mean, you learn a ton of things every day. Yeah. I think, one of them is patience and just, having a cool level head about you, trying to, like, everybody's going to get emotional, and, you should get emotional when you really are passionate and believe in the project that you're working on. I mean, there has to be a certain level of emotion into it. But you got to be cool, level-headed about it. I mean, there's, don't get too crazy excited when things go great, but don't get too crazy despondent when things go bad. You just kind of stay level and keep plowing the course. Never give up. I mean, I know you hear that a lot of ways, but know when to pivot. And I think you have to, one of the things you realize in business is you got to pivot quickly. You have very rarely is your business plan is what gets executed indefinitely. And this is exactly what's going to happen forever and 100%. So, keep at it. Don't give up. Don't get discouraged. Easier said than done, but know when to pivot. If something that you've been going at, is not working, then, you got to change it up a little bit. You don't want to change it up. Like, you want to make sure that you're kind of working with building blocks. So you might be building up a little foundation, and, it's kind of like building a pyramid, right? You're working on a certain thing and you realize this isn't working. So you'll move to a shift in strategy or direction. As long as that shift in strategy is kind of building on the blocks that you set before you, then you're going to keep working towards that common goal. You can't be like, like the fireball thing is not working. I'm going to go back and I'm going to start making something that's totally unrelated. So keep building on it. Know when to pivot. Pick your partners wisely. Partners are like marriages. I will say that it's very, very important. But just believe in the outcome and believe if you stay at it, it will happen. And, I think I'm a firm believer in that. Try to raise my kids the same way.
Awesome. How many kids do you have?
I have 4 kids, a grandkid, and 1 on the way.
Wow. And you really manage it all. Okay. I love to hear it.
I got an amazing wife that helps.
Yes. There's normally one of those behind every successful entrepreneur.
For sure.
Awesome.
Because it's hard. I mean, when you cut the cord, look, working for a company, for a big company, I mean, when you get to the level of CEO, you pretty much got the, and I've never been in a position, nor really have I wanted to be in a position to be in a CEO spot of like a big company. And I look at these big company CEOs and I'm so impressed. Like I look at the CEO of Solo Stove. I mean, the guy's just a super polished, super brilliant, charismatic, and, very guy that's been doing this for, career. I mean, something when you go pursue that path, hugely you get to that point, the kind of individual that can run big enterprise. As running it on, I mean, I think that it's like that whole entrepreneurial pathway, managing and wearing multiple, like the process of getting things started. I've always said I'm 0 to 50 million. That's kind of where I.
It's a good thing to be good at.
Yeah, it's hard to get something off the ground.
Like I said, we graduated from the same college, so I'm like, okay, classes, obviously.
We were, yeah.
Very cool, very exciting, and also, man, because I know a lot of like hustle culture out there, track mind, and you have to just, be doing it all in on the business, and then sometimes something ends up not happening, and it sounds like you've really found a great balance in it all, and that sounds it definitely is impressive and helpful to understand. And it's really interesting to hear how lit the CEO of the new brand Insola, and because relatable, because I feel the same way about our CEO. Get around these individuals, and you sometimes you never think you mistake, but you feel like you're this established, you've done a lot, you're feeling good, and then you start being led, blows your mind. You're like, oh, okay, I'm going to level up because I want to do what they're doing.
Well, that's what the great leaders do, and that's who's like super stoic. I mean, $1 business now he's running a business. I mean, it's a whole different thing, and I think you have to be kind of right. I mean, I don't think people kind of be born an entrepreneur. I guess because again, I don't know if I'm good at this, but I think like to some of these CEOs, like that is for that. You probably have to have something that's in your just kind of in your DNA person, but it takes years to be able to develop the business acumen and the stoicism. I think stoicism is probably the most to be able to do that, because when you're here, you're dealing with a certain set of problems and they're in a certain level. There you're dealing with, that amplified by 10, and you have to be on it all the time. And it just blows me away how how amazingly well this guy's able to do what he does.
Awesome. Well, that's incredible. I really appreciate your time today. This has been incredibly inspiring, and I know it's going to be inspiring to so many others. So thank you. And we hope to have you back once you start launching all these products so we can hear about them, or just to hear about what's going on in your next chapter.
Sounds great. Stay in touch.
Yeah,
Thanks,
definitely. You're welcome. Have a good one.
Good day. Bye-bye.
Bye.